All right, now I would like to move to the next module. The next module, I call it business information, or information related to doing business, information related of being an entrepreneur in Vietnam. Maybe the first, and again, as you see, I give you deep dive information, and I give you something, sometimes information that is something like a kind of nice. One thing that I found interesting here and very nice, especially in my case, since I live and travel between the west coast of the US, Central Eastern Europe, and then Southeast Asia, is whenever you travel, I have an apartment or a house in Vietnam, I can use my American plug as well as I can use my European plug. That's something they did very smart here. I don't need to have adapters. I go to Australia, I need an adapter. I go to Singapore, I need an adapter. I go to the USA, I need an adapter. But you come to Vietnam, perfect. You don't need an adapter. They made the sockets the way you can plug it in and it works. And that already shows you how smart these people are. And very disciplined people. I really like working with them. And you can see it on your passport. You travel to China, the guy at the border just puts his stamp anywhere in the middle of my passport and the page is destroyed. You come to Vietnam, it's absolute discipline. They make it on the left top corner, bam. You go out of Vietnam, you emigrate again, you get it just next to it in a very nice disciplined flow down. And I see this not in many countries, but the Vietnamese do have this. So they're very well organized, very disciplined. That's something that I like. But again, as I mentioned earlier, keep in mind, there are differences between North and South Vietnam in a bigger picture. And then when you go into details, you will also see regional differences, which you may not immediately see because you mainly see that when you are doing business either in tourism, because maybe you are on the coastline in central Vietnam, or you're doing business with some agricultural goods. You're buying rice or fruits or shrimps or fish, and then you come to one of those other regions where you're buying coffee or cocoa bean. And that may already lead me, again, what are the sectors of Vietnam that could be interesting for business? So remember I said Vietnam is an inverted S shape or a snake shape, like people say. Let me draw it again for you. So yeah, this inverted S, a bigger plot of land here, a bigger plot of land here in the south. And I already mentioned here, everything is flat. Ho Chi Minh City is an elevation of less than 20 meters, and here's a lot of wetlands. Of course, you can imagine a lot of rice comes from here. But not only rice, there is a lot of shrimps farming, fish farming, rice, this is exported. Then you have a lot of fruit trees. And I'm not only talking about bananas and oranges, you have the dragon fruit, you have mangoes, you have durian. Durian is fantastic. A fruit not so much known in the Western world, but it's very much exported to China and Singapore, and also for the local market. So that is when it comes to agricultural goods. Then you have the highlands here, yeah, very narrow, and then going very high up into the mountains. So actually, you can do business here on the coast, yeah, tourism, hotelery, resorts, excursions, diving school. Then you have the mountains, where there's a lot of coffee plantation, cocoa, and other fruits and herbs, artichokes. Then you have the north again, and of course they also do have the rice plantations. They do have a lot of fruit farming there. Again, fish is here. So that is when it comes to agricultural products, or things you could do in agriculture. But keep in mind, land ownership doesn't work the same way it works in the USA. You cannot just go to Vietnam and buy a farm like you would do. I go to California and I buy a ranch or farm there. You can do that. It belongs to you. You own it. That works differently here in Vietnam. Yeah, so it's not that straightforward as it would be in continental Europe or in the USA. So that's a little bit about agriculture, farming, if you want to do something in there. I spoke a little bit about tourism, so I told you there's a lot of seafront activities. You have the Halong Bay here, which is a World Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage. Of course, you have the city tourism in the two mega cities that I mentioned, Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, 10 million people, 10 million people. And around that, there are some tourist attractions. And then you have the Mekong River, a lot of boats, tourist boats, some excursions there. So already you see it is still very much an agricultural land. Yesterday in the World Economic Forum I heard a number of 63%. It was said that 60% of people still living and working in agriculture or from food and beverage business. Definitely, I mean, the country has 86 million people, so you can compare it with the size of Germany. Germany has more than 80 million people, 82, 83. Vietnam has 86. And 20 million live in the city, so Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, and then you have a few smaller cities, which may give a total of 30 million people living in the cities. But you see 86 minus 30 still lives more than 50 million people living in the countryside in the provinces. So it's very much possible that still 63% of people work or live in agriculture. The cities are growing fast, booming, so there's a lot of construction happening and related industries that serve the construction sites. Tourism is booming and growing. One interesting thing here is, I would almost call it quality immigration compared to other countries. Most of the foreigners who work in Vietnam or live in Vietnam have a high level of education. They have graduated from a college or university. And most of the Western foreigners who live here, actually they are general directors, general managers, CEOs, or they have their own successful business. So it's more a premium quality immigration when it comes to people from Europe or Australia, New Zealand, and from the USA. And you don't see that in other countries. So when we speak about Thailand and Cambodia, Malaysia, it's already a different picture. But here, most of the foreigners that you would meet here is really very well educated and having very good positions. Education is another area that works very well, and it's to the benefit of the English-speaking people, because it's very easy for an Australian, a New Zealander, and British to come here and open a language school, which they do. The language schools are mainly owned here by Zealanders, Australians, British, a few Americans, and they also easily get a job. Somebody just wants to move from England, come here, yeah, he comes here and becomes an English teacher. And he can make a living of that, because people do want to speak English. There are some people from the older generation, let's call me, upwards, 45 and more, in the north, they may speak Russian or German during the times of Soviet Union. In the south, there are some old people who do speak French, but when you look into the young generation, it's gone. No French, no German, no Russian. It's all English. It's single-minded, focused English. Everybody here wants to learn English. Everybody wants to get their kids to English school. There is no interest in other languages. It's really English. Yes, of course, you will have 2,000 young Vietnamese who study French. You may have 500 young Vietnamese who study Russian, German, Spanish, but what is 500 out of 86 million people? All right, so these are a few key facts on business. I may now look maybe the next session into accounting, incorporation, and some similar information.